Hey everybody, I am going to be creating this card today and I am going to be featuring some watercolors from Arteza. I've worked with them in the past, wonderful company to work with. I love their products and all of their supplies. So they had contacted me and asked if I wanted to give some more supplies a try. So of course I said yes. And you can get 10% off your order by using Tiffany Solorio 2, and the link will be in the description box down below, so be sure to take advantage of that. The prices on most of the items are already amazing as is, so getting an extra 10% off is just absolutely amazing. All right, so the first thing that they sent me was the Arteza watercolor paper. And I already had some. It's 140 pound. I absolutely love it. Nice texture on it, but I already had some opened, so I didn't want to open it. This is the gouache paint, and as you could see, the colors and the light fastness, transparency, and pigment number are all on the box. And that makes it really nice for when you're trying to reference colors or anything like that. So I won't be using the gouache paints today as I'm not very familiar with them. I need to learn more about them before I use them. I am, however, going to be using the 36 watercolor pan set, and I absolutely love this. It's nice and big, and it is 36 colors in there, so I'm going to show you. So the colors are on the box as well as this guide here, which is really nice. Only if you're not going to move the colors around. I don't really care what order they're in. But if you're going to move the colors around, then you might want to put the numbers on the back of the cube. I was just checking to see if there was a number, but there's not, so you might want to label them accordingly to how you like to do it. All right, so there is the watercolor pen or brush that comes in the pan set as well, which is really nice to have. And there is also room for more cubes in there, so you can add some of your favorite colors as well. All right, so we are going to just kind of play around with them. I wanted to see how they worked on the watercolor paper. So what I'm doing is just laying down a little bit of water, and then I will be picking up some of that watercolor color and it is way less chalky than the Prima for sure. The Altenew is a little bit less chalky than Prima, and these are even less chalky. I don't really care for the chalkiness of watercolors. These seem to be a little bit more creamy, which is great. So, and before I go any further, I do want to say that I am not a watercolorist. I am not a painter. I do watercoloring in my crafts. So, if you are an artist or anything like that, and just bear with me, please, as I explain, because I haven't taken any, courses or anything like that. So I really love to watercolor on my cards and for my crafts and things. All right, so I am again adding the water onto the watercolor paper and just kind of blending out that color there just to see how it would work. And let's see. Oh, now I'm going just to, so the first technique was wet on wet. I didn't add any water on the paper, so it is dry. And when I add the watercolor to the paper, and then I'm kind of blending it out with some water. The watercolor brush I really like because you could, it's the water's right there. And sometimes I get too lazy to clean my water, and so it's really nice just to have some water in the brush. All right, so I am going to start now on my card. So I used a Altenew stamp set, Pretty Flowers, and I stamped it with some Versamark ink and put some white embossing powder over it, heat set that to melt the embossing powder, and that helps when I'm watercoloring, and it honestly it makes for really easy, quick watercoloring images because the embossing powder acts as a barrier. So there really isn't any much thinking involved. So what I did was I laid down some color to a few of the petals, then went in with the color. And the color that I used is turquoise. And just so that you know, if you like that color, I absolutely love the color. It's super pretty. And then after I gave the petals an overall color, then I went in with a more concentrated color. And then now I'm kind of taking away some of the color on the very edges so that it gives the flower a little bit more depth. I think this technique is an easy way to kind of trick people that you know what you're doing. It's kind of give the illusion that you know how to do really amazing coloring, which I don't. Just laid down a overall color, added a little bit more concentrated color towards the center of the flower, and with the water brush I take away a little bit of that color from the top of the petal as I'm doing here. And then as it dries, it kind of blends out really nicely together, and again, it just kind of gives the illusion that I know what I'm doing, which I don't. Some of you make very, very sweet comments that tell me not to put myself down when I'm, when I'm coloring or anything like that. I'm not trying to put myself down. I just don't want to come off as like I know exactly what I'm doing when I really don't. I just kind of wing it and hopefully give you guys some tips because I don't know what I'm doing. So maybe it will help some of you that want to give it a try as well that really don't know exactly how to go about it. So I am doing the same thing. I lay down some water, and this is a smaller flower from the stamp set. So I laid down the water, and then I got some of the watered down color and added that to the petals, and it just kind of spread out really nice. And then after I did that, I added a little bit more concentrated color to the center of the flower, and then I'm just going to kind of blend it a little bit out. All right, so those are done, and they're not perfect. I love the kind of wonkiness of them, and I am now going to color the pollen, and the colors I'm using are sunburst yellow, and let's see, sorry, I can't say this word, Aureolian yellow. Kind of mix them a little bit together just to kind of get the color that I want. All right, so I wanted to do a technique that I showed in one of my stencil videos. If you haven't seen those, I will have it linked in the upper right hand corner for you guys in the card so you guys can check them out, which is watercoloring with your stencil. All right, so what I did was I sprayed some Pixie removable adhesive on the back of the stencil. That way it limits the amount of water bleeding and color bleeding when I'm doing this technique. And I'm using watercolor paper, the same watercolor paper from Arteza. So I am trying to do an alternating gradient pattern, I guess. So I go on one side with a concentrated amount of color, and then I alternate the opposite side. I go from left to right, and then the line above I go right to left. So it's kind of different kind of look to the card and gives the card a little bit more interest. So as I'm doing that, I realized that I needed a little bit more concentrated color. So I am going to go back in, as you can see, alternating left and right for the concentrated color, and then it just kind of bleeds and blends. And I was getting a little bit worried that I was adding a little bit too much water, but I think it ended up looking really great, as you're going to see here. Oh, in just a second. I have to pat it dry first just to make sure that a lot of that water on top doesn't go everywhere. And it didn't have to be perfect, but I did run the card panel through my die cut machine with a wonky stitch die, and I will have that linked in the description box down below. I'm adding some splatters to the top half of the card with that same turquoise watercolor that I used for the flowers. And then just going to dry it really quickly. Then I'm going to add my flowers, or I'm going to add some fun foam to the flowers to pop them up a bit, and then add some upholstery thread just to give the card a little bit more interest and texture. So I add the big flower in the center. Just a second, I probably am kind of playing around with the thread there. And then I'm going to add the two smaller flowers on the sides here. And this is a very fun, bright, summery card that I made. And I did actually add 2 layers of the fun foam for the center flower and just 1 layer to the 2 side flowers. That way they layer nicely and it gives the card a little bit more dimension. All right, I am going to use a stamp from Verve Stamps. Verve Stamps is sadly not in business anymore, but I love this sentiment and I thought it was perfect for this really fun, bright card. It says, kindness is a beautiful thing, which is so true. And I'm using some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And I was a bit worried that I was going to mess it up, but I think I did pretty good. And I did have to take those flowers off. That is the beauty of using Fabri-Tac for this sort of thing, because I can pull them up without ruining my card, and then just add a little bit more to place them back down. And I love how simple this card is. I love the watercolors from Arteza. I don't have any real technical review for you guys. As a crafter, I absolutely love them for my crafting cards and projects, and I will definitely be using them more in the future. Here's a couple more videos you might enjoy. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. And I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys later. Bye.